Thank you for joining us for the 11th episode of Origins Unknown podcast. This will be the final episode of season 1. We just want to thank you so much for all of your interest and engagement in the podcast. When we first started this podcast, we had no idea the effect it would have on the community or ourselves. We also really want to thank all of our guests. Sharing your story is not easy, and we couldn't have done this without you. That being said, we are casting for season 2. If you would like to be part of the podcast or suggest a topic for season 2, please email us at hello@origins-unknown-podcast. For our final episode, we are diving into part 2 of Chris and Nicole's story, as well as we're learning a little bit more about foster care in Canada. We hope you enjoy.
I think I walked the long way home. Now fall, just pick me up and hold me close when things get rough. And you never walk the road alone, 'cause we've all got our origins unknown.
I just had a question though, because you mentioned relatives, aunts, uncles, grandparents, or whatever. And this is just me not knowing how everything works. But before, if a child is in a situation where they need to be removed from, their situation, do these caseworkers reach out to family members first, or is it kind of like, no, we're just going to put them with, foster parents or whatnot? Like, how does that work?
Depends on the severity of why the child was taken out of the home. Oddly enough, when it first happens, personally speaking,
Okay.
to the family step forward.
Okay.
They waited for several months, and then when we've had instances when we were told up until like the day that we'd be adopting a child who wasn't going home, we actually had a grandfather step in and go, well, if that's the case, then I'll just take her.
Oh.
And then so after she was with us for a year, he moved his daughter in with him, and the biological mother, even though she didn't do what she should have, basically got her back. And that kind of stuff happens. It slips through the cracks. But yeah, so a lot of times that we've dealt with, family won't step in until it's a more permanent thing, more permanent issue. You definitely don't get like aunts and uncles asking for access visits and stuff like that. If the grandparents are part of the biological parents' lives, whether they live with them or they go to their house every day, if they're a little more invested in the biological parent, then they will be more invested in the child at some point.
Okay. That's interesting. What are things that prospective foster parents should keep in mind, and what can they do to prepare themselves?
Reunification with biological family is the most important thing. It can be hard to realize that a child might not go back to, you can be the best foster parent in the world, and you give them absolutely everything. Sometimes in the eyes of the court, it's more important to have, maybe not have the best of everything, but have their necessities met, and they'd rather see them with the biological family. So if you're trying to be a foster parent or foster to adopt parent, realize that it's not so cut and dry. Is that the term? Cut and dry?
Mm-hmm.
It's not so cut and dry. There's a good chance that a child would go back to their biological family. So they need to keep open the thought of it might not be a permanent thing, and even something that seems permanent might not be that way. So the most important thing is reunification with the biological family. So children will probably just come and go. You give them the best that you can while they're with you, and if you keep that emotional, it's an emotional barrier. You do have to keep in mind, if you can separate the two, you're trying to bond with this child. You're trying to give them all the love that you can because they need that to grow. But realizing that in 3 months, they might not be here anymore.
Mm.
So yeah, you have to do a really good job of like compartmentalizing your emotions, because I mean, which is something I'm terrible with, because I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm just like,
You?
Yeah.
Whoa, but you're so calm, cool, and collected all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I can see how that would be something that's challenging.
Fostering is not easy.
Yeah.
I'll just say it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of emotion in it, a lot of potential hurt, but a lot of reward for the child, not for ourselves. I mean, at some point, I'm sure you feel good that you're helping, but for us, it is, we don't want this child to go through 2 weeks or 7 years of not developing into the best human they can be. So we step in to do that, and that's why we do it, so that they have comfort in knowing that they weren't just dropped off for whatever period of time.
A safe spot to land.
Yeah, I mean, even with just like you were mentioning, to touch upon the development of a human being, I mean, just from the fitness realm that I live in, I mean, 0 to 7, like you could teach a kid within that range, that age range, something like a movement, like a squat or a push-up or a pull-up or a kettlebell swing or something complex. And it has been proven through studies that it will stay with them until, like, if they never do another squat again, if you ask them to do that in their 40s or 50s, it's going to be with them. So it does show how important those early years are, which goes back to just adoptees and us, where first year, 2 years, whatever, it's completely just blank. There's nothing, we have no memories of it, but regardless of whether you remember it or not, it does affect your development in some way. And I think that's why a lot of adoptees suffer from trauma, because of the circumstance.
When it's decided that a child is going to be put up for adoption, what steps are taken by you to assess the child, or what happens before that point?
Like, as foster parents, what can we do to prepare a child who's going to be adopted?
One of the most burning questions that after searching for the birth parent, there's this feeling of trauma and relinquishment. And then there's the understanding, like, wow, we didn't just go into, cryogenic freezing. We were still a little living entity. Or when you know that a child's going to be put up for adoption, what are the steps, or what are the things that you try to do to best prepare that child? Or, you spoke about like the weaning the one beautiful baby off of drugs, like what are the things as a foster parent that you try to do?
What we did as foster parents in order to help kids, I guess, keep somewhat of a normal life while their life is up in limbo, is just making sure that they're loved, that we continue that bond of from an infant who needs to be birthed properly and walk around and get tummy time, and just they need to continue to progress. That's what we're there for. We're there to just kind of keep them motoring, because, like you said, cryogenically frozen, they're coming back knowing nothing, and I guess that doesn't work because their bones wouldn't grow. But so if there's a gap between what they were used to and what they're coming back to, in whatever case that may be, they need to make sure that they develop. We reach these goals, these milestones. Developing as a child, a lot happens. Everything from learning how to eat, learning how to walk, use the washroom. You need to be taught all of that. And if there's months at a time where you're not getting that, then it's going to put a lot of strain on a child. So
it's essentially the foundation, like someone's foundation. Yeah.
So what we want to do is we want to make sure that every child's feeling loved, every child feels like they're a part of something. So that way, when they get to a point where emotions come into play when it comes to relationships or how to love, who to love, they know that love because they were given it. Even in a time when it wasn't available for a biological family.
Yep.
If that answers your question.
Yeah. So from your perspective, and this is the perspective of a foster parent, what is the adjustment period like for a foster kid when placed in a new foster home?
It varies. It varies from child to child. There's some children who they go through, they don't like change. They go through anger, uncertainty. We had a little boy in our care who, him and his mother never were in one place at one time. They would travel from friends' couches to places, different places to stay. And one of the best feelings we had with him was when we took them. He would never, ever sleep in the car. Never sleep in the car. We went picking apples one day, And we're driving, and we look back and just kind of keep an eye on him, and he is conked out. And it's cool because time slows down. We're driving, it's later, the sun's setting. You see, like, you're going by trees and everything. So you see, like, that golden sun, it's hitting his face, and he just looks so content.
Mm. Well, like apple picking
at that point, it was crazy. So it's hard because kids will come in not knowing, and I mean, if they're younger, whether there is, if you're looking at a family who wasn't caught drinking a lot during a pregnancy or doing a lot of drugs, fetal alcohol syndrome, that can be in children, and they will never know, right? If they're not tested for it, or it doesn't come up as some sort of red flag, you're never going to know. So temperaments are going to be different, how they react to things. So you not knowing that, they're going to come in, they may be angry, they may not sleep. We had two little boys, two brothers in our care, who we got them night lights to have. They slept in the same room together, and it took them a long time to just fall asleep. We got to the point where one thing I did as a foster parent is I come up with a different song to sing to each kid. So each foster child had a different song that I would sing to them. So, and that always kind of sticks around. So,
ow, my heart, ow.
So one of them was I would go in and I would hum the song to them to kind of get them to go to sleep, and they might not. They might sit up and keep talking and stuff, but you do what you can. Try to keep a routine because they need it. Or if they didn't have it before, it's going to help them develop. It's a toss-up. It really is. You just have to kind of find the child. You can't come in, a child doesn't come in and they're just all of a sudden comfortable. They're going to sit on your couch and they're going to watch TV and ask for snacks, and they're going to be very guarded. Some of them they'll have accidents. They might tear things apart. They might, not knowing if they're safe, they will resort to blocking themselves from feeling anything from somebody getting too close to them. If there was some sort of traumatic issue that happened to them, then you have to deal with that as well.
Yeah.
So if there's a type of sexual abuse as a man, as a foster dad, you have kids come in, and if you have girls come in and stuff like that, and you know very well that what you have to do in order to help them, you're potty training, they're learning how to shower, whatever that age is, that can be difficult. So navigating around that, because you want them to feel comfortable, right? At that point, working together, it would be my wife would go in and help them shower, whatever made them feel comfortable. You know what I mean? And they would get to points where it's all right when, like I talked about the one boy who fell asleep in the car ride. You get to a point where there's another little girl who's not being startled when you walk into the bedroom. When you're going to tuck them in and say goodnight to them, they feel comfortable. There's children who you open a door and they're up. Like they wake up. They don't sleep well. So many different instances. So it's kind of hard to point one, I guess.
Yeah, and I think this also touches upon some of the underlining kind of lowest common denominator between adoptees and even just foster kids is that, all of us, for the most part, as children, we didn't choose any of this. Like we are kind of thrust into these situations just by, the situation or circumstance. And so I think that lends to this idea of, furthering this movement that we're trying to do with this podcast is to, clearly there's a lot of trauma here. There's tons of trauma, and just, a young child having to deal with any of that, that's asking a ton, but to be able to take something that could easily just be viewed as a negative thing, and this is just kind of like a stain on my past and it's hindering me, or I don't want to talk about it, or it's affected me to a point where I've developed issues or I have mental health issues or whatever it is that like I have and a lot of adoptees have. We want to be able to, not only just talk about it, but to kind of almost in many ways normalize it and say, look, it's okay. Like it's like that idea. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel, negative things, and it's too often, I think people are always trying to run away from those things, but I'm like, look, it's okay. But the more we talk about it, the more we can own those stories, the less control they have over us. And that's really the concept of this, is that's why we trademarked Adopted AF, which is, now I'm thinking of like Foster and like using other trademarks, but ultimately taking something that's negative and using it as a positive, and that's what we want. We want people to empower themselves with their stories that they might otherwise not want to talk about because it is so traumatic. But, we want people to have more control. And I think that regardless of being an adoptee or foster kid or whatever, all human beings want more control in their lives. Like, I think COVID was a prime example of how we all had no control, and it was very jarring. I think I've met so many people that experienced depression for the first time in their life during COVID. And me being me was just like, I'll try doing that for 38 years, but it's relative. Like, if that's depression for them and that's the first time they experience it, that I get it. It is very jarring. But, I think to give people more control, we need to empower ourselves through ownership, and doing what we're doing right now is just talking about it. So
what you guys are doing is fantastic. I think it does. As you say, it's on shows. Like, you see it on, it's foster parenting is portrayed as a very negative thing a lot of the time. And what you're doing is you're giving kids and teenagers and some adults who are watching your podcast the information they didn't have. Or if they're going into this, there could be a teen right now who doesn't know, who's dealing with something traumatic and doesn't know how to go about it because they've heard horror stories. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, they could be with somebody who's going to care for them, who's going to help them through whatever for however long it needs to be.
Yep.
So I think you guys going through and doing all these different point of views is fantastic. And I think that's going to help a lot of people. It's great.
Yeah. And I do want to backtrack with the whole movie reference that I made. And I think that I'm not saying that there are no negative foster homes out there. I think maybe the people who write these shows or movies, maybe they were a product of a bad situation and that's why they wrote about it. I often think about that a lot. I think about just like the idea of romantic, I know this is going to be a tangent, but like romantic comedies. You look at something, you watch a movie like that and you're like, that's not realistic. And then you're like, well, someone wrote it. And then I like to believe, because I'm a hopeless romantic, that maybe it happened one time in the history of the universe. And that one time is enough, So maybe if they start portraying foster homes as like a positive thing, then it shows, hey, there are positive foster experiences and foster parents and foster homes. Like, why are we always putting this negative stigma on this? Even though they exist, let's also try to showcase the positive ones, and I think that that's just not done. Or I haven't seen it done. Maybe it is. I just maybe haven't seen it portrayed on the screen. So I want to say there was a recent movie that I saw that had, did Shazam have anything to do with foster care? I don't know why I'm thinking of that.
Yeah.
Right?
They were an orphanage.
Yeah, and that family was amazing.
Or an orphanage, whatever.
Yeah.
Got to the point where they were so close, and he was dealing with all of the things. And they're like, "Hey, we got your back. You're a superhero." And at one point, I don't want to ruin the movie for anybody who hasn't seen it. At one point, they get together to help out.
Yes.
But that's when you realize that it doesn't matter who you are or what kind of things you have or what makes you different from somebody else. You can get together for a reason to care, a reason to help, a reason to love, a reason to save the world if need be.
Yeah, I think that was the first movie that I saw foster care portrayed in a positive way. Like, you almost wanted to be part of that family. You're like, I want to be part of that family. Those parents are amazing. It's like just a great dynamic. It feels safe. It feels like, just we all need a safe place. We need a safe space. All of us.
When they found out that he was, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm just making it up now in my head, but at one point he ran away, and they're like, "We're gonna go find him." So like, you guys wait here. We're gonna hop in the van, and we're gonna. And it might be a small oversight to a lot of people, like it was to me.
Yeah.
But when you look back at it, you go, "Hey, there's an opportunity where."
Yeah.
Wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Come on, Hollywood. We need more positive portrayals of foster care.
The thing is, it's a very real thing.
Yeah.
And it happens more often than not. And kids, when you're dealing with families who are, every family has it, whether you're a blended family or a mixed family of different cultures or stepbrothers and stepsisters that you're finding. Even myself, I had that I told Claire I found a half brother on Facebook back in
I'm
2007.
excited. That's been such a great conversation.
Okay, we need another episode. It's like
one of the great things about this experience is that I often find myself just like sitting and listening to people's stories, and I love hearing. I'm more like processing. And so when I was talking to you and I think it was in a dual live that you told me that I was going on live with you. You're like, hop on right now. And I threw on my Canadian onesie and we sat there and talked. And then all of a sudden we started talking about the fact that you have a half brother that you didn't know and that you were a foster parent. And it's just so amazing to me how much Origins Unknown and the search has touched all of us. And it's great hearing your story as a foster parent. And then now as someone who's, I'm hoping that because he lives by me, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
It was in Calgary. It was odd. I know I don't want to take all your time, but it was definitely odd.
This is your time.
Yeah.
Well, you guys got stuff to do.
No, we don't. This is our job.
Because we talked to Ashton about taking a trip down your way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I would love to be able to meet him if we come down that way, right? So we're talking about doing that. Meet up with a couple of creators over down your side.
When? Let's do it.
Ooh.
I don't know. I started talking to you about it, and then I think Ashton and I were both in your live or something.
Yeah.
Ooh, like a creators retreat?
I'll hire an actor and we'll put an iPad over the actor's face and but it'll be like it's you, and then they'll, right? Like, so you're there, right? Like you'll be face level.
That would be amazing.
We will glue on a mustache.
Yeah.
Well, no, we don't need to.
Enough that somebody can walk up and be like, oh.
Yeah.
No, Kate, I'm calling it right now. We both know that the mustache will be on my face by the end of the evening if we're at like a maybe. Oh my gosh, should I get a Chris mustache? Should that be one of our merch items?
Handlebar, yeah.
That's amazing. So I would love it if you guys wanted to come up and maybe do a reunion, and
that'd be cool. So I've talked to him. I talk to him quite often, and I actually brought him on to TikTok, and then
nice,
up really quick, because he's a Santa. He's a Santa. Long story short, I sent him a message on. Yeah, if you look at his eyes and other stuff,
look at his beard. He looks like a Santa. Oh my gosh! I love Santas that natural beard and like all those things, like where it's not just something that they're putting on or gluing on or some type of outfit. Like he looks like every picturesque art version of a Santa to me. Like,
so super. A crazy aside, I actually lived in an apartment building. It was like the best apartment building because we became like a little family, like on our floor, because we lived there for so long. And the guy who lived across the hall for me actually and went over, he was actually a Santa. He had a Santa school, and so he would like teach people how to Santa and like tutor them and stuff. So like all the time in my building there'd just be different like versions of Santa. It was like probably the best year of my life. What are the most common questions that foster kids ask?
If we're generalizing the questions, we get everything from let's go really deep with it. We do have to tell children a lot of the time why parents don't show up for access visits. How long are they going to be with us? Why can't we go see our mom or our dad? Stuff like that, where they're just it's the unknown of why am I here? Because we dealt with younger children. It could be a matter of like the home they came out of was a mess, and they're not going to know if the normalcy for them is to have dirty clothes, nothing for a lunch, always yelling, or there's no comfort and love in the household. they may ask that, but not necessarily like we can't give them that answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of us just trying to tell them your mom or dad might have something going on. They need to get better. They need to fix something. We try to generalize it, but the big questions we get, I guess, would be, why can't I visit? How long are we going to be here? Can I see them?
And would these questions come about after a period of time where they've, I guess, to some degree feel a little more comfortable, or most of them kind of closed off for a while, or do kids just ask the questions right away? Or
they'll ask questions right away.
Oh, okay.
Why am I here? Well, and which makes it hard because we're trying to make them comfortable.
Yeah.
And you're in a stranger's house and you're expected to like go to sleep and, and all this kind of stuff, and then get up and have breakfast. And, you're dealing with, we have to kind of work on the fly.
As a follow-up question, what are some commonalities with like foster kids that you see? What are some common themes? When kids arrive to you, what are some standard things that you notice, like commonalities between the kids? Like things that they might do, they might say, like, is there like something that you can edify that is typical?
For kids that we've had in our care, I would, oddly enough, I would easily say they want to go watch cartoons. What's something that most kids come in that's pretty common amongst all the foster kids we've had? I'd say they come in, they have no problem sitting down watching TV. We don't, like, they're young enough, right?
Yep.
So there's not, we've had some that are upset, like clearly upset for what's going on. They've been pulled out of their home for unknown reasons to them. But I could easily probably say that they want to just sit and watch some TV. We're like, oh, do you want to put some cartoons on, something that's familiar, right? Easily enough, you throw on some Disney Junior, and the kids are going to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what that essentially is. It's just trying to find some type of anchor that helps them feel a little more comfortable.
I would say you would offer if they're hungry or something, maybe they wouldn't. They'll pass on it. They won't be too interested in eating. For whatever reason, whether it's just an unknown.
So you're taught to not take food from strangers, and I picture my nieces and nephews who play strange, especially my nephew will, he's a great, wonderful kid, but he's just uncertain of new people. Imagine taking them without anybody, and then you guys are getting this child that's like upset, and then they have to go to bed at your house in a strange bed, right? Like it's just what you guys do. And like the cartoons thing, we found this with adoptees, that we're all really immersed into like pop culture. We often have like TV shows that we're obsessed with, and like it's just a familiar thing. Like a lot of adoptees I found will put on one show. Like I have watched The Office probably 25 times through. Fringe, Parks and Rec, right? And it's funny that you mentioned the TV thing. I didn't notice it. But
that is automatically comfortable.
Yep. I guess this kind of ties into this also. What are the things that a foster parent can do to help kids adjust to this traumatic experience?
Understand them. Don't try. You can't just jump right in and start trying to fix them. You just want to make them comfortable, especially from day one to the first week to maybe the first couple weeks. It's about making sure they're comfortable. You want to. We've always kept a schedule. We've always kept kind of things very particular. Like if you're coming in, now our daughter goes to bed at this time, and you're going to go to bed, and they have a bath at this time, so you're going to have a bath at this time. And you give them enough advance. You can't spring anything on them because it's a decision they have to make right away. I would assume. So typically we want them to be comfortable to a point where, because they need for development, proper development, you want them to sleep well. You want them to feel comfortable. You need them to eat, and
So just kind of essentially like meet them where they're at, rather than trying to get them to, go a place where they're not ready to go. And then also just like anything else, yeah, like you're saying, structure is so important. Like you need, like, I think all of us need structure, we need routines, we need these things because, it's hard to kind of function or even get anything or just be productive in general if you don't have some type of schedule. So that's good that, you guys are hyper focused on that.
And this is a big one for me. And in talking every time we talk to adoptees, as a foster parent, what do you want to say to adoptees?
None of what happens is your fault. It can't be explained as easily as you might want it to be. Just know that if you're being looked at if you're being looked at to be with a family for the rest of your life, that might not be what you're used to. Look at it through the eyes of somebody who it wasn't the family you were born into, but the foster parents that you have are the family that choose you.
Mm-hmm.
And we want nothing but the best for the kids that come into our care, because we realize we've seen through experience struggles kids can have, and we don't want that for the next one. We want them to be comfortable. We want them to be confident. We want them to develop the way any other kid should. And being adopted into a family is just that. It's just being part of the family, and it's not a scary thing if it's necessary. Proceed with some caution if you need to, if that's what makes you feel comfortable. But it can definitely be an open arm embrace.
Mm-hmm.
So something that's when you realize that foster parents are there or foster to adopt parents even are there to make you part of their family. Not to take you away from another family, but to make you part of theirs, because they care about your well-being. Yeah. That makes people feel comfortable knowing that it's just they want you to be part of their family.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people just need to hear certain things. I think too often things are either implied or things aren't said at all. But what you said, I think, is really powerful, is that as much as I have heard that from my own parents that, this has nothing to do with you, that, you hear it a lot. But, I think coming from you, it also resonates with me, and I think, just thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no problem. It will drive kids crazy when they're trying to think of, did I do something wrong to make somebody stop loving me? It's nothing about that. It's the issue with the biological parent. It is no fault. And you see it when kids come into your care. You will see how they will tread lightly on things because they don't want to get in trouble. Because assume that for whatever reason they're not in their home anymore is probably the reason that might turn somebody else off. Which I guess to some kids, if you're going from foster home to foster home to foster home, might be an issue. And you need to find who you're comfortable with, I guess. And there are foster parents out there who genuinely want that. They want you to be close. They want you to feel comfortable. Because every child deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, I love this because for me, I'm learning so much, and I think that that's what's so great is that it's illuminating, and it's even our last episode with Jeremy Clark, like there was just so many things I didn't know about, children with alternative needs because it is intimidating when you're not exposed to a lot of that stuff, but that's what we're trying to do here is just expose everyone that's tuning in, that's listening, just expose them to different facets of this, that everything that falls under this umbrella of, adoption, foster care, blended families, transracial adoption, like everything, all the gray areas, because it's not, like you said earlier, it's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. It's so kind of muddy, and we need to be able to, share these stories because they're so important. They're so important. So I just truly appreciate your time. And you are, if you guys aren't watching this, again, Chris has the most majestic beard. Like, it's amazing. I love the gray down the center. Like that reminds me of like a rogue with her white hair type of thing. Like, that looks dope. Well, Chris, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and share your story. I think it's something that everyone needs to hear, especially within this space. So again, just truly appreciate your time. And, we look forward to eventually start doing follow-up episodes with people. So we'd love to touch base in the future.
I appreciate
Thank you
the
so much.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. When I reach out to you, it's so amazing when I reach out to these adoptees and different people to walk you through from telling me your story to actually coming and sharing it. And it can't be easy. And just thank you so much. It's so great.
Oh, thanks for having me.
If you'd like to connect with us on Instagram or TikTok, you can find us at
Origins Unknown Podcast.
You can follow my co-host at
Beyond the Tats.
You can find me at
Sea Bear Huntington. We're also on Twitter. Follow us at
Unknown Podcast. If you'd like to visit our website, it's
originsunknownpodcast.com. Also, if you'd like to send us questions, share your story, or even just say hi, you can send us an email at
hello@originsunknownpodcast.com. Special thanks to Pace Randolph for writing, performing, and producing the audio for our podcast. Follow him on Spotify for more wonderful music.